This video is indeed rated B for you'd better back on out of here if you don't want spoilers, buddy. If someone told you that they could save you from death and the anxiety of pain, would you listen? Would you fearfully sign upon the dotted line without reading the fine print? Or would you peel back the page to reveal the cost that such a boon would demand? Because everything, no matter how grand or common, comes at a price. I am the Synodic Scribe, and today we'll be addressing the fantastic yet troubling lives of those living under the Leven Dome, and how even the essence of life itself can be turned into a regular commodity when you only look at the benefits. Gather round as we discuss the lives and choices of those within the modern Alexandria. Alexandria is a strange society, even for the setting of Final Fantasy XIV. While it's not uncommon for technological advancements to exist in a world driven by magic, it's certainly not the norm. Societies like those of Sharlayan, Garlemald, Alag, and even the Ancients to some extent enjoyed the luxuries that come with sophisticated technology. The reason there aren't more societies like these upon the source is mostly due to the fact that magic already exists to serve the same benefits that technology would offer. You don't need a firearm when you can simply wave your hand and instantly strike something with lightning. You don't need air conditioning when ice magic can cool your home on its own. You don't need cars and planes when you can teleport, and so on and so forth. Take the expansion of Dawntrail, for example. Before you arrive within Solution 9, you travel upon the continent of the New World. The people of Tural, whom you've been getting to know very well throughout the first half of the expansion, have already lived their lives upon this continent for many centuries, building their own marvels and surviving in a variety of ways. It wasn't until very recently that people such as Koona had begun pushing to use more technological advantages for their society than simply arcane ones. Because while magic offers just as many luxuries as technology would, it takes time, patience, and effort to learn spellcraft. A very skilled mage can become just as useful as any profession, like a doctor, technician, or a soldier. But not everyone has the patience to learn these skills, or enough talent to really care in the first place. But that's not so with technology. Anyone, regardless of their magical talents or IQ, can benefit from the boons such progress can bring. But there's the rub. If everyone can do something, by definition, it's no longer special or impressive. There were some characters within Dawntrail that were concerned what radical technological advancement might do to their society, to the way they've enjoyed their lives for generations. Would they need to sacrifice their cultural identity for the sake of progress? These were real questions that the people and leadership of Tural had to ask themselves during the secession trials. Ultimately, the decision they come to is that the introduction of more technology isn't a bad idea, but it must be done slowly as to respect the lives and cultures that have already been living here long before this technology ever arrived. These advancements must bend the knee and work for the people, and not the other way around. Which finally brings us to Alexandria. The stark differences between this place and the rest of the world becomes obvious as soon as the invasion of Tuliolal begins. Flying vehicles, energy weapons, and autonomous soldiers reveals a state of technological advancement well beyond what anyone on this entire continent has been able to achieve in thousands of years. And yet, things become much more clear after the Warrior of Light finally arrives within the dome itself. Here we see people that have completely given themselves over to the comforts and ease of a technologically driven society. automated irrigation, power lines, mechanical aids, and of course, the ever-contentious regulators, just to name a few. It's important to distinguish that it's not the use of technology alone that's shocking about the Alexandrians. It's how they gave themselves over to it entirely. They even hoped to avoid the anxiety of death through the use of regulators. What's more, when someone with a regulator passes away, knowledge of them would be wiped from their society, sparing the people the pain of absence while also erasing any comfort memories of that person might have provided. There's only one other society within Final Fantasy XIV lore that is cited to have given so much of itself to their own technology: the Allegan Empire. It's stated that at the height of their success, the Allegans wanted for nothing and lived their lives in mortal-made paradise. However, this ease of living came with many unforeseen consequences. Their laziness gave way to the definition of sloth, doing less and less as they allowed their technology to solve problems for them. In fact, they had become so numb to their own toils that they began seeking extreme measures to entertain themselves, resulting in the torture of living things and even the murder of fellow Allegans just to ease their boredom. While many might say that Alexandria hasn't reached that level of degeneracy yet, let us observe the Yaweyawata field station. Even though it was under Zoralja's command, the research that was conducted here was vile. Both willing participants and unwitting test subjects were exposed to brutal and lethal experiments, all in the pursuit of testing the limits of the very technology that they had given themselves to. It doesn't take much to see the similarities between this field station and the research labs of Azizla. While their cultures aren't exactly the same, the path Alexandria had begun walking down was disturbingly familiar to anyone learned in the lives of ancient Alag. And while you could indeed argue that Garlemald had begun reaching such heights as well, even their greatest technological advancements paled in comparison to that of Alexandria. The Garleans had only just recently begun experimenting with the essence of souls, but Alexandria, they had already built entire simulated realities around living ether. But from where did all of these benefits come from? Simply put, the people of the Ninth Reflection didn't actually earn or create their own advancement. During the Fifth Umbral Calamity, the Calamity of Ice, a group of Malala Lalafell used what is known as the Key to migrate somewhere else for safety. The land they ended up in wasn't anywhere on the source at all, but the lands of the Ninth Reflection. It was here that they used their superior understanding of arcane runes to etch magical circuitry upon the ore that would later become known as Electrope. And this revolutionary invention would change this reflection forever. While it can be argued that without the aid of the Lalafell, this reflection might have invented Electrope at some point, it's incredibly likely that it wouldn't be anywhere near as powerful as what the Malalans created. Because what we need to understand is that if the old texts are to be believed, the Malala had been studying the arcane for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Countless hours of research and advancement had led to their superior calculations and arcane traditions. And by the sounds of it, no mage upon this reflection came anywhere near close to their level of mastery. But what happens when you give a brand new and superior form of technology to those who, as a culture, hadn't even made something half as powerful? It means that they had gained something remarkable without being able to appreciate the cost. Or more importantly, the risks. The introduction of Electrope had changed everything on this reflection. It not only revolutionized their lives, but it also created an arms race, with kingdoms pointing new Electrope-powered weapons at one another to try and hoard as much of this magical ore as possible for their own realms. This ultimately led to the Levin storm that ravaged their world, and while similar to the second Umbral Calamity, the Calamity of Lightning, these events were not the same, as the second Umbral Calamity was ultimately the fate of the 12th reflection in particular. But as their world was slowly coming to an end, Alexandria became desperate, deciding that they would resort to anything in order to survive the coming end. And much like a people panicking in water, grasping at anything to stay afloat, they were prepared to drag something else down just to save themselves. And what they grabbed onto to drown in their place was the essence of life itself. Souls are complicated, and even after thousands of years of research, even the greatest researchers and mages had come to admit that they feel as though they've mastered little, if anything, in regards to souls. Even the ancients, who were one of the most advanced societies in the Final Fantasy XIV universe, had to admit that souls were ultimately beyond them. Instead, they chose to use their tremendous powers to protect the flow of souls and life throughout the star. We've also seen how a vibrant, radiant, and diverse world full of life can be ultimately destroyed when the flow of souls is interrupted. And look no further than the 13th reflection. Having lost its ethereal realm and the natural flow of souls, it became the void, and has been a wretched realm for thousands of years because of it. So when I say that Alexandria became so desperate that they began toying with powers far beyond their comprehension, know that I mean it as literally as possible. Alexandria would survive these events, but would never be the same. By combining the powers of Electrope with the seemingly limitless potential of souls, Alexandria would enter a brand new age. One that sought to make the worries of death a thing of the past, while providing nothing short of a perfect kingdom for its subjects to prosper within. On paper, this sounds ideal, especially after surviving what many would consider to be the end of the world. But the ultimate truth is rather sad. At this point, Alexandria is only the same kingdom in name, as most of its original culture seems to have been washed away. Their architecture, rituals, practices, and many more lay as nothing but ruins, while the benefits brought on by Electrope have devoured their entire cultural identity. That is to say, that almost nothing truly Alexandrian is left. Nowadays, its people live sterile lives, attempting to ignore the unforgiving nature of reality in what they see as a safe and controlled environment. Are you scared of death? Why not get a few soul cells to ease your worries? It comes only at the cost of living people. Don't know how to defend yourself? Why spend years training your body or learning magic when you can use a feral soul to give you the boost of power you need just when you need it? Come on, it'll only shorten your lifespan a little, if not worse. Are you bored of your day-to-day life? Why not buy a new motorcycle or car, a new outfit or hairstyle? Buy, spend, indulge yourself, enjoy life. Just don't think. In fact, you're not even allowed to think about your friends, mentors, or loved ones once they pass away. Besides, you won't miss those memories, will you? Don't think, just enjoy. Within Alexandria's attempt to grow beyond death and pain, it smothered the things that would have encouraged passion and determination. And at its core, they ultimately created a fate worse than death with their treatment of souls. After all, the soul is ultimately the core of what makes a person who they are. Their soul is the reason your warrior of light can't help but think and act in very similar ways to someone that they once were in a previous life, the ancient known as Azim. The Alexandrians' system attempts to control that cycle by turning living souls into batteries for its citizens. In its place, only the memories of those who once lived are kept safe, but this is ultimately a hollow existence. as the very system powering these simulated memories is the same reason that those very memories will never grow beyond what they are: perpetual state of ignorant bliss. It wasn't until the reveal of characters like Calyx that we start to understand why the existence of modern Alexandria feels so sterile and controlled. And that's because it ultimately is. With all external and unpredictable variables removed, Alexandria and its people, as well as the memories and souls of those people, become the perfect lab experiment. Under this system, there are no distractions or desires outside of the ideal parameters. At this point, Alexandria starts to look more like a petri dish than a nation. And how could it not, when most of what made this nation unique was either left to rot or turned into a gimmick for entertainment? Not entirely unlike how another scientist used the laziness of his nation to turn his people into a personal project. But in Alex's case, they were doomed as the people learned far too late just how much danger they were in. Alexandria is a cautionary tale of what happens when people give up too much of themselves to the ease of convenience. It's as the saying goes, if something sounds too good to be true, it is. The extra lives an Alexandrian gets from their soul cells comes at the cost of someone else's potential existence. The feral souls used to fight and entertain their people not only harms the wielder, but torments the creature's spirit beyond simply dying. Never thinking about things like death sounds nice until you realize it means possibly forgetting about the people you loved more than the world itself. Even the etheric lightning that keeps their country going harms and kills those that are unlucky enough to be paralyzed by it. And with the regulators wiping out memories of those who passed away, it's unclear exactly how many people have perished from Levin sickness. It could be as few as a dozen, or as many as hundreds. All the benefits of Alexandria's seemingly futuristic society came at a tremendous cost. So it's no surprise that groups like Oblivion came into existence once some of these people began to wake up from the delusion and realize the true danger that they were in. So what will become of Alexandria? It's hard to say. While advancements like Electrope are amazing, it's technically not even their invention. That, and building their entire society around it, is dangerous. Simply put, if it's arcane runes that made Electrope, then other magic can likely unmake it as well, possibly creating a tremendous flaw in their network. So if this nation wishes to live peacefully upon the source, it's clear that many of their conveniences will need to be stripped from them. The cold and uncaring hands of reality will come to drag them away from what they feel is safety. Yet this is ultimately the price for living under blissful illusions for so long. But tell me, my friends, with everything we've discussed today, what do you feel will be the ultimate fate of Alexandria? Will its system face total collapse and be forced to rebuild? Or will its people do everything in their power to maintain the status quo, unable to bear life's true weight without the comforts they had become accustomed to? Either way, I'll be preparing for the next presentation as you ponder the future of this nation. But until that day comes and we can speak together again, stay safe, my friends. Thank you all for watching to the end. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe and share with your friends. But before I go, I'd like to acknowledge my biggest contributors. A grand thank you to Amina Voltaria, Nare, and Potato. Links to things like my channel Discord, social media, and connections to my channel artist Caddy can be found down in the description below. Thank you all once again for your viewership, and I hope you have a wonderful day.